Dr. No was a huge step forward for the action genre, as it was very different for its time period. Other action films from this era consist of films such as Battle Beneath the Earth. Nope, I've never heard of it either. However, this is also a spy film, just like Dr. No, and yet not many people would be able to honestly say that they've heard of it. And if they do, they'll probably be getting it confused with Journey to the Centre of the Earth. With this in mind, as most, if not all, people know of or have heard of Dr. No, we can already tell that it really pushed the action genre into being what we know it as today. I've chosen to analyse the very first scene in the film, as it gives us an idea as to how action films generally were 50 years ago. At the very beginning of the scene, we don't see Bond's face until he introduces himself, even though he is sat at the poker table. This is our first taste of mystery, as at this point, we know nothing about him besides the fact that he is good with cards, he smokes, and divulges with high-class people, as we know from everyone wearing suits and dresses. Also, when Bond first says his name in the most iconic way, the music begins to pick up, signifying that this is our man, this is our hero.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Even if you hadn't ever heard of James Bond, you would know from this music that he is the protagonist. The director of this film, Terence Young, decided to use soft lighting in this introductory scene in order to keep it warm and rather comforting. This is probably because this is the first sighting of James Bond, and we want to show the audience that he is a good man, despite being surrounded by some really seedy people. We can also interpret some connotations from this introduction scene from the woman in red. Typically, the colour red can signify multiple things. It could mean anything along the lines of love, evil, or anything similar. So with that in mind, we should also take the setting into account. A high-stakes poker game surrounded by many men in black suits, most of which are smoking and or drinking. It isn't likely that she is signifying love at this point. Perhaps evil, or at the very least she's a woman who has mixed in with the wrong kind of people. Alongside this, she is practically throwing money at the table, so we can immediately determine that she is quite wealthy, ruling out her being an innocent girl who has just wandered into a poker game. We know that she is somewhat involved with some sort of mischievous organisation. As for the camera work, a tilt is used when revealing the woman, thus creating an aspect of importance as it eventually ends up on the woman's face, showing her significance. This also doubles up as a close-up, so that we can see her facial expression more clearly, giving the audience the impression that she means serious business and that she isn't messing around. This is then followed by a wide shot so we can survey the scenario in more detail. Another close-up is used after this to show the woman's exasperation, possibly because she is losing this poker game, which she is not used to. This type of shot is also used to the reveal of Bond, which allows the audience to focus purely on this stranger who is smoking and playing poker. The over-the-shoulder shot used after this then adds more intensity, as it shows us the intimacy of the conversation, which also adds tension to the scene. While this is technically an action film, most people would say that James Bond films are a part of their own genre, their own category, as it provides the audience with a fantasy of secret agents uncovering villainous plots, blowing up the secret base, and doing it all in style. But we're not complaining. Another film that belongs to the action genre is Inception, which was a huge success during its release period in 2012. This brand new IP brought a mixture of breaking into dreams, heart-wrenching moments, and incredibly confusing moments in order to bring us a truly incredible story. At the very beginning of this scene, Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, looks around the setting with a clear sense of confusion in his eyes as they are darting around the room. This could be because something just happened and he is surprised by the outcome, and was not expecting to be in this situation. The music picks up as well, and this could also be interpreted as victory music, as it is very loud and booming.
Hotel, sir. We'll be landing in Los Angeles in about 20 minutes. Do you need immigration forms?
It also plays while the camera pans around the other people in the room, some of which look disturbed, some happy, and some frightened for their lives, which can only make us wonder what has happened up to this point. By now, it is obvious that our main characters are on a plane, but the reason why is yet to be determined. One character on the plane seems to know what's happened due to the fact that he looks at Cobb, laughs, and looks down, possibly due to disbelief that they have managed to complete their mission. Each time the camera cuts back to Cobb, he looks even more confused as each of his teammates are safely reunited on a vehicle that they have no idea as to how they got on there. Through most of this scene, Cobb's mouth is open, increasing the idea of disbelief and confusion as is portrayed to the audience. But when the final character on the plane is revealed, who also has a confused look on his face, Cobb's expression immediately changes to a determined, angry look. Once this final character sees this, he quickly diverts his gaze and tries to focus on the phone in his hand and begins dialing, as if he needs to talk to someone about what has just happened. From this, we can presume that he is one of the villains in the story, or at the very least he betrayed Cobb previous to this moment. Cobb then looks down at the ground as he tries to process all the information he's just been given, giving us one final dose of his true confusion. Once Cobb makes it to customs, the music changes to hold a single note while the customs officer checks his passport, keeping us in suspense as, just like Cobb, we are unsure as to whether he is supposed to be here. This is reinforced by Cobb's unsure and nervous look on his face. His eyes are everywhere, he nervously smiles at the officer, and he appears to be trembling and breathing heavily. Throughout this final sequence, all of the main characters are wearing incredibly smart clothes and suits, so from that we can infer that they are serious about their business and are professionals in their respective fields. And finally, Cobb looks up to see 2 young children, and his face just lights up incredibly, so we can definitely assume that these are his children, and that fact that he runs away from his object to hug them tells the audience what truly matters to Cobb. At this point, he doesn't care if it's a dream or not, as long as he has his children. But because of this makes us think that he must have either been away from them for a very long time for some unknown reason, or he lost them due to unfortunate circumstances. Now as for the camera shots, the first shot we see is a close-up of Cobb's eyes as they dart around the room, searching for an explanation. This affects the audience as we immediately get placed in the same boat as him, and are able to equal our confusion to his. A pan is then used, accompanied by intervals of close-ups on Cobb's face, in order to show the viewers each of the characters' expressions and reactions to the current situation, and how each of them deals with it differently. This adds a more personal feel as we swiftly move from one person to the next, not lingering on any one person for too long, and witnessing the expressions. Then, once Cobb enters customs, the high shot / close-up of the passport in the customs officer's hands creates tension, as we are nervously awaiting the result of his inspection. This once more keeps the audience on their toes at this point. Anything could happen. There is also a very quick POV shot, which brings us into the eyes of Cobb and experiencing this scenario for ourselves, albeit for a second or two. It creates a more personal feel to the scene as we can swiftly put ourselves in his shoes and try and understand what is happening, as he is also doing. Later, when Cobb is in the house looking at the kids, slow motion is used when the children turn their heads and stand up. This is to symbolise how shocked Cobb is by this, and how important it is to him. And finally, a pan is used once again to subtly shift focus from Cobb and his kids to the spinning top on the table. Then the cut to black creates the final mystery as it leaves the viewers begging for an answer to this mystery. Where Dr. No is more based on the Secret Service uncovering evil plans and foiling the villain, Inception is more about twisting what you already know about the human mind and uses that to provide thrills, action and plenty of mystery. Dr. No is all about guns and fast cars, Inception is all about sleeping and dreaming. These are 2 vastly different films, but they still belong to the same genre as they follow the generic conventions of action films. Action is a film genre where one or more heroes are thrust into a series of challenges that require physical interactions, extended fights, and frantic chases, which both of these films have. Both films involve a mysterious, heroic main character, fast car chases, huge gun battles, and massive explosions. So whilst the action genre has changed massively in the eyes of this generation, it is still very much the same. Inception, as it is a more modern film, focuses more on the relationships between the characters and developing personalities, whereas Dr. No is mainly about saving the world and not much else. These are 2 vastly different films, but similar in one way. They are action-packed.